What's going on, guys? It's Luke here of SimBoxx. This is the Let's Talk Boxing podcast. And, guys, we have crowned an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. It was thrilling. It was dramatic. It was pulsating. We was waiting for this fight for so long. It was delayed and delayed. Of course, we went 25 years without an undisputed heavyweight world champion, and now we have one. His name is Oleksandr Usyk, and it was a fantastic fight. Of course, you can find me on Twitter at Luke_SimBoxx, and I'm delighted to be joined by a guest co-host today on the Let's Talk Boxing podcast, making his debut for us, Mr. Darren Aston. Darren, how are we doing?
All good, mate. Thank you. Really pleased to be on your show.
Yeah, it's much appreciated that you're on here. And Darren, what an event it was from the start of fight week with the ugliness of John Fury and that all spilling over with Team Fury and Team Usyk and the kind of scenes we don't really want to see in boxing. But from start to finish, from that first Monday up until the final bell going on Saturday night, what an amazing week.
Oh yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. It was absolutely superb stuff. The build up, like you say, apart from the John Fury stuff, which wasn't needed. The whole fight week was epic. We had a few mishaps with where the weigh in was Usyk's weight was read out wrong and things like that, but it was topped off by an absolutely epic, undisputed world heavyweight title fight.
Yeah, of course. And along with the main event, stunning in of itself, there was another cracking undercard like these Saudi Arabia cards when Mr. Turki Al-Sheikh is throwing his millions at these promoters to get fights made that are a pure fantasy, and it delivered again with the undercard. We will touch on that as we move through the pod. But with the main event, it was, of course, a split decision. Usyk winning it on two of the cards, Fury getting it on the other. Let's start there, Darren. Did you believe the scores were right? Firstly, did you have it a little bit wider? Did you agree, utmost that it was the right man that won?
Yeah, I think the right man won. The 115, 112 card for me was pretty much spot on. I had Usyk the first three rounds. Then I think Fury took over to about round seven. And then obviously his nose got hit. And I think that hindered him a little bit, which then he took an absolute beating in round eight and he was wobbling all around the ring. And then I had Usyk 9, 10, 11 after that. And then I gave Fury the last round, which my scorecard ended in a 115, 112. I've had people saying to me quite a lot since the fight, oh, I think there could have been a case for a draw or, possibly one round to Usyk. I had it 3 rounds. And that's the way I had it. But, that's the beauty of a closest fight when you get with conflicting scorecards. But definitely for me, the right man won.
Yeah, you know what, and I'm going to hold my hands up here, and I like to bask in the glory of predicting Usyk to win, and pretty much in the fashion that he did. I put that out on my social medias, but at the same time, I'm not sure if I mentioned it on last week's podcast, but certainly amongst my friends and probably like yourself and every other boxing fan, with anyone that had listened, we talked to about this fight. I kind of started getting these thoughts of what if this fight doesn't live up to the billing that we've waited all this time. And as we mentioned, it's a fantastic fight week in Saudi Arabia. They do all these events, the face-off, the press conference. We're hanging on every word and every action of these guys, trying to get a little insight into what's going on.
Yeah.
And I just kind of thought, what if it's elite level boxing? It's two elite heavyweights. What if they cancelled each other out? And I was worried that it was going to be a bit more of a chess match. And I told it to all my friends. They came around and we watched the fight. And I'm a boxing purist, and similar to yourself, will watch any kind of boxing. But when you're selling it to the casual fans and they're expecting something like a Joshua and Ngannou, and a bit of a firefight maybe, I started to wonder, is this being overhyped? Is it going to be the opposite of what we're
Mm-hmm.
thinking? And boy, was I wrong. And that's the point that I'm getting to, that ultimately I was wrong. And, thank God I was wrong, because it was a fight for the ages. In terms of, as you mentioned there with the scorecard, you say you had Usyk up after 3. I think this is where a lot of the contentions come from, because the difference in opinions. I remember on Fight Night, I think Richard Woodall had Fury up maybe 6-1 after 7 or something like that, or certainly 5-2. And I remember getting to round 8, and obviously Fury came into it really strong, 4-5-6, or maybe 5-6-7. and he come into it really strong. And I remember saying to my friends that was sat there like, "Oh, this is Fury's fights now," and it certainly looked like if he put his foot down, he could have took control. But I remember thinking, you can only win one round at a time, and Usyk's banked those early rounds. So after 8, I had it 4-3, maybe. Sorry, after 7, 4-3. Either way, I had it super, super close. Just because those rounds that Fury had won 5-6 were quite dominant, he still only won the round 10-9. So I think that's
Yeah.
where a lot of contention comes from, because you had the impression watching the fight overall that Fury was running away with it, when in fact he wasn't. Just to go into those early rounds a little bit more in depth, Darren, do you believe either man's game plan could have been any better? Would you have made any changes? Tyson Fury, for example, didn't really have the theatrics of a usual Tyson Fury walk-in. Some people are saying he wasn't really motivated, or maybe not as motivated as he was for the Deontay Wilder fight. Maybe he didn't have that fear factor. But there was a lot of showboating there from Tyson Fury early doors that, from my viewing, wasn't warranted. I'd love when he did it against Wilder, when he got up from that knockdown in round 12 of the first fight, and at certain points of the second and third fight, that it was warranted, that his hands were behind his back, his tongue was out. It was almost kidology in this fight, that it was reverse psychology. He wanted to give the impression he was in control. Maybe did he know at that point that he wasn't? And again, going back to my original question, would you have changed anything from either man early on?
Well, for me, with Usyk, we pretty much got what we always get with Usyk: super slick boxing skills. I thought he worked the body well early, Usyk. And I do agree with you. It was a better fight. I thought, like you, it was going to be a chess match, but it was a much more exciting fight than that. Tyson Fury, there's been a lot made about his weight, and people are going on about it. Oh, did he come in too light and that? I think people are making out a little bit more of that than what's needed to be. I just think purely he was beaten by the better man on the night, and I think the factor in the fight mainly of the turning point was Fury sort of like weighed Usyk up a little bit after 3 rounds. Usyk at the end of 7th round, his corner, or 6th round, corner told him basically he needed to step it up, step on the gas. He come on and stepped on the gas, broke Fury's nose and cut his under his eye. And then that was the turning point in the fight for me. I think Fury was wary of his nose and was, using the glove, touching it a lot. And that for me was just the turning point in the fight. Do I think either could? I think they've got, Tyson Fury particularly has got to change something different for the second fight. But I think one of the factors he needs to look at is his corner. I think he needs to get rid of his dad, for one. And you can't have 3 men talking in the corner at one time. You need one person. That one person realistically should be Sugar Hill.
Yeah. And I think it was the fact that it was different opinions as well, wasn't it, Darren? It wasn't
Completely.
like they was all touching on the same point in different ways. It was, use your jab, you're winning this fight, cruise, and you need to, win these rounds. It was 3 different opinions from certainly,
Yeah.
I'm not here to slander John Fury, but he's certainly, in terms of his knowledge or his opinions on boxing, you wouldn't sit him alongside Sugar Hill or Andy Lee. So certainly when you're looking at it, you're thinking, and I put it on Twitter as well, too many cooks spoil the broth, and that certainly could be the case with Tyson Fury. Just expanding on what you said there about the issues with his nose, which were clearly evident. But was it in the first round as well, where he seemed to have caught a left hand in his own corner, and he seemed to be a slight bit of damage there? So that might have been a seed planted that went horribly wrong from his point of view later on in the fight. And that certainly did play its part, because it was evident. It was almost like a seismic change, wasn't it? Like Tyson Fury in those middle rounds. I had preset in my mind already what I was going to put on social media. Too big, too good, because that's what it looked like he was doing. He looked like he was using his size, his reach, those clubbing right hands to the body and a couple of uppercuts, which I thought was his best weapon for Tyson Fury, was that uppercut. And for the first time in maybe ever, we look like Usyk might have been coming apart, and it's a testament to the man that he regained himself the way he did. And we'll touch on it in more depth, but that round 9, Darren, will live long in the memory, won't it? It's one of those rounds that we'll go back to. The AJ Klitschko round 5, and I'm talking recent memory. That pops into your mind when you think of great rounds of heavyweight boxing. Deontay Wilder and Fury himself. That left hand that set it all up. It was Usyk was coming on strong. If there was to be a knockout in the fight, and I spoke to Kieran Farrell and Anthony Croller and Nick Campbell in the build-up, we all thought that if he was to be a knockout, it'd be Tyson Fury. That Usyk is a spiteful puncher, but not a concussive puncher. And to see the fight flipped on its head the way it was in such dramatic fashion, that's what we live and breathe as boxing fans.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to point out as well, the one thing I think I agree with you. I thought if anyone's going to stop anyone, it'd be Tyson Fury. I actually backed Usyk to win the fight via a split decision. I thought that's the way it'd go. I think we'd nip and tuck. I did, yeah. A few other bets on the undercard let me down, but that, I won't go there.
We don't talk about losses.
No. But basically, the thing you can say about Tyson Fury is he's what you'd probably call chinny, but his powers of recovery are very good. I mean, we've seen him get hurt in fights before, but we've never seen him that badly hurt. He's been dropped by Wilder, gone down from a shot, but he's never been hit with that many consecutive punches where it's damaged him that bad. And then there's the argument about the referee. Should he have allowed the final punch from Usyk? Should he have stopped the fight? The referee made the decision for the fight. It was allowed it to carry on. And that's where we're at now. Where we're at the talking points about did Usyk win? Did Fury win? Was it a draw? But Usyk, for me, he's not the biggest puncher, but he's a consecutive, accurate puncher. And Fury, he's a little bit chinny, but his powers of recovery are very good. But that ninth round was absolutely epic, brilliant stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And
sorry, not the ninth, the eighth round, weren't it? Sorry.
No, ninth. I think you're right. It was
the ninth. Sorry, the ninth round. Sorry,
yeah. And speaking of bets, I know for certain it's a ninth round because I had a couple of quid on Usyk to win by stoppage rounds 10-12. So I thought he'd softened him up there for the stoppage. Okay. That's by the by. Going back to the ninth round in particular, I think the thing that really got me, as you say, it's not the power, it's the accuracy. He was like a sniper in there. That left hand and the right hook, straight left combo was pinging Fury's head back and pinging him around the ring. And I'm not sure which podcast I listened to where they likened it to almost like a Rocky movie because he was touching all four corners, and it's almost like for the dramatics. And to think that was actually happening, my jaw was on the floor. I couldn't believe it. My friends were jumping and screaming and hollering, and I was just in pure shock. And when I'm watching the fights at home, I sit on the corner of my sofa right in front of the TV. No one can get any closer than me. And I remember I didn't shift for the first 8.5 rounds. And then at the end of that ninth round, I just got up and I fist pumped my brother and I was like, wow. And I took my seat back for the start of the 12th round. But I just had to get up. That was just like, holy hell, that's actually just happened. I think it'd be fair to say that had the fight been waved off, there'd have been no complaints. Given Fury's power recovery, we've seen in rounds 10, 11, and 12. There was an argument he might have won the 12, but 10, 11 he lost, but he was still in there. He didn't really look like he was going to take too much damage in any of those rounds. And it is, the fact that it's Tyson Fury, he's got up against Wilder numerous times, and he got up against Ngannou. How many times, Darren? Being realistic, we'll play devil's advocate here. Can we dine out on Tyson Fury's powers of recovery? Because let's imagine he rematches Usyk and he goes down again then, and he might get hurt. How many times are we going to let this man take more punishment because we believe, it's Tyson Fury, he's going to come back? If he fights Anthony Joshua down the line, who's a massive puncher, and if Joshua starts landing on him, do we kind of preset the referee to think, no, this is Tyson Fury, he can take that, he'll come back, and then, God forbid, something was seriously to happen, It's kind of, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, I was looking at the other day when Mike Tyson and Holyfield fought, and in the round before Holyfield stopped Tyson was on wobbly legs. But the next round, as soon as he got caught, the referee was striking to stop the fight. So I look at the magnitude of the fight and gave sort of like the referee the benefit of the doubt and thought, the fight is what it is. He's made a decision, like you say, Tyson Fury's powers of recovery. But then you have also seen other massive, massive world heavyweight title fights or other world title fights where referees have still stopped fights for a lot less than that. So, like you say, there couldn't have been any argument if the referee had stopped that fight. But is it also a factor of it sells a rematch better to have it close on the card. It's you can look at many factors of that, but I'm just happy the right man won in the end, because I think it'd have been a lot worse if the ceremony gave it Tyson Fury after that. So that's what I was pleased about.
Yeah, and I think there's many cliches we use as boxing fans, and certainly guys like us that are doing podcasts and interviews and whatnot. We tend to use boxing cliches, and one of them is it was a fight of two halves, and I've seen Frank Warren say the same. Yeah. But for me, Darren, I kind of and quite early after the fight, I dissected this as 3/3. There was rounds 1 to 4, if you like, and then 4 to 8, and then 9 to 12, and that's why I thought the fight was won and lost for me, and it was spectacular. And at the end of the 12 rounds, it did seem, I thought, that in order to sell the rematch, we don't like to talk about conspiracies and this, that, and the other, but it's a part of boxing nowadays. It's a business as well for sport. Yeah. I wouldn't have been surprised if it had been a draw. And for once, we're talking about maybe the fact that Tyson Fury was given the fight on one judge's scorecard, or the fact that there was tight cards. That's causing a bit of controversy, a bit of discussion. But overall, as boxing fans, we're actually talking about the right man winning, which is really refreshing in today's sport. I just want to make a quick mention on the atmosphere, Darren. Certainly the weigh-in, and then on fight night, these cards in Saudi. Obviously, there's no alcohol on site, which makes it a lot different from a UK card or the American cards or any other card around the world, really. But I thought the atmosphere was fantastic. There was for both men as well. Team Fury and Team Usyk was well supported at the weigh-in. There was a big crowd there, and then on fight night, I remember right before Michael Buffer come on, obviously they had the rapper, which went on a bit too long. Still a spectacular show, of course. Like there's no expense spared with Turki Al-Sheikh. Knows how to put on a hell of a show. But right as Michael Buffer come on the big screens, and that raw, like, this is happening. This is finally happening. It just felt like I was, I was there moment. We'll talk to our kids about it, our kids, and if they go on to get into boxing or any kind of boxing media or sport in general, you'd be like, yeah, I remember this happening. It really felt like one of those moments, and the fans, the crowd, really played their part in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've said this to a lot of people. I think it was one of the best Saudi atmosphere. Well, it was the best Saudi atmosphere we've had. They've had the critics in the past, including me. We've had the fight cards. We've had all the fights we want to see. We've got more going forward. But the one thing you can say, it has lacked atmosphere at times. But this one excelled that. The atmosphere was superb. I think it also helps that you had a lot of Brits go over there for Tyson Fury. They made a lot of noise. But like you say, even the weigh-in and everything and the press conference, you could tell that throughout the fight week, you could tell the atmosphere was already better than what we've had before. And it was brilliant. And I want a quick mention about the arena as well. The arena, for me, I got told, I don't know what it actually was, but I got told it was only on about 13,000, 14,000. It looked more than that to me. But how big was the floor area compared to the stands? The floor area was absolutely huge.
Yeah, I did notice that myself. Yeah, it was because obviously on TV sometimes when you look at it, it looks big, and then when you're in the arena yourself, I go to Manchester Arena quite a lot, and you're like, oh, it looks much bigger on TV. But even with taking that into perspective, it still looked massive, didn't it?
Absolutely massive. It looked like all sides of the arena are like from the halfway line to the goal net, like would be on a football pitch. So it just looked absolutely huge. But yeah, credit to them. They absolutely nailed that event. And on we go to what will look like will be the rematch, and we'll see. I expect an atmosphere, but the only thing is, obviously, you're not going to have all the belts on the line for that one. By the looks of it.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll touch on the rematch conversation in a second. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on. I'm not sure if you want to rank boxers pound for pound, and as boxing fans, we tend to have a recency bias in every aspect of the word or the phrase, that between Inoue, Crawford, and Usyk, they're generally considered the top 3 boxers on the planet, and they have been for a little while now, since Canelo's lost to Bivol, really, because he was undisputed pound for pound king for a long time. And I always feel like when Crawford beat Spence, because I knew he had not really fought at that point. He was the fight with Fulton. So then he beat Spence, and then okay, so Crawford's the best fighter on the planet. And then the Inoue fights, and it's oh, Inoue's the best fighter on the planet.
Yeah.
And now Usyk's fought, he's the best fighter on the planet, you know. And I think that it's quite a comical thing as boxing fans that we tend to do, but for me now, I don't think there can be any dispute when you're talking pound for pound, you know, pound for pound, who's the best boxer on the planet. You're talking about a man that was undisputed cruiserweight, has moved up, give away so much weight against Anthony Joshua, beat him, beat Chisora, and now he's beat who was widely considered the best in the division in Tyson Fury. Give away again so much weight, so much length, reach, and everything, and he's beat him, and he's beat him well. Can be no real argument that at this moment in time, as we sit here, that Oleksandr Usyk is pound for pound the #1 boxer on the planet.
Yeah, I think I've got to agree with that. I mean, like you say, for what he's done, I mean, the man's no fluke. He won Olympic gold, World Championship gold, won every cruiserweight belt, won every heavyweight belt now. How can you not have him as your pound for pound #1? Like I say, it's no fluke. He's just a genius. And the main one, like you say, hit the nail on the head. Lots of people for ages. Tyson Fury's #1. He's not going to get beat. He's not just beat Tyson Fury. He's beaten Anthony Joshua twice. And I agree a little bit with what Carl Froch said the other day. You know, you couldn't argue with him if he retired because he's completely boxing. But he won't. He'll be a man of his word, and he'll go on and have the second fight. But yeah, and it's not just you know, like you say about the Crawfords, the Inoue's, the heavyweight division is also the most fan favourite division of them all as well.
Yeah.
So he's the pound for pound #1 for me.
Yeah, and you know, just a quick one. We speak about the victories over Anthony Joshua. Before that, obviously there was always the talk of him being WBO mandatory because of his status at cruiserweight. He'd always move up and be the mandatory challenger to Anthony Joshua. I think it was after Joshua's victory over Povetkin, where there's that image of Joshua in the ring and Usyk sat in the crowd with his hood up, and it's sniper vision. You know, it's like a lion with a gazelle. You know, and he's like, you know, that's I'm coming for you. And back then, 2019 or 2020, whenever it might have been, we looked at Usyk and dismissed him as too small. You know, we didn't really know a lot about him in terms of heavyweight, of course. We knew what he'd done at cruiserweight, but everyone dismissed him as he's not going to get in the way of Joshua and Wilder fighting, or Wilder and Fury and Joshua, and he's totally torn it up at heavyweight. So yeah, that image is one now in hindsight that is so telling, and it's a cold image.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not just that fight. Apparently, he's been studying Tyson Fury for like 8 years now. It's what he does, and I've said this to a lot of people, and it's before the fight as well. He's the type of guy. He's a born winner. He always finds a way in a fight. He had a bad round against Anthony Joshua in the second fight, I believe it was. So he comes out. He then absolutely wins the next round, completely domination. Tyson Fury claws 4 rounds back against him, and goes 4-3. Goes 4-3 up against Usyk, and then what does he do? He comes back again. He's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
He's a really great character as well as a great fighter. And I don't want to take this opportunity to knock Tyson Fury either, because we can all have our opinions of him out of the ring, and you know, sometimes he says things that we don't really agree with, and of course he's been diagnosed with bipolar, so we have to take that into consideration. And you know, so I've always made a big thing of the deadlines that he imposed on an Anthony Joshua fight and things like that. That gives you a different opinion on Tyson Fury, maybe. But you know, I'm going to give him his flowers while we're here. That it takes 2 to tango. It takes 2 to make a great fight, and he's certainly played his part in this fight. He's played his part in rejuvenating the heavyweight division with his victory over Klitschko and that amazing trilogy with Deontay Wilder. So by no means are we taken away from Tyson Fury's accomplishments as a fighter, as a boxer. We're just championing the winner, which was Oleksandr Usyk. He was the man that wears the crown. But yeah, both guys deserve the utmost credit. They're going to get unbelievable paydays out in Saudi. Of course, that goes without saying. But more than that, they earn the respect of each other. And even if it's possible, they've earned even more respect from the wider boxing public and anyone that watched the fight, really.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was going to say to you, it does take 2 to tango, and you know, let's be honest, the most memorable round in the fight, Tyson Fury was a big contributor because the way he was bouncing off the ropes each side of the ring, it was just that'll live long in the memory for many boxing fans. But yeah, it was a great fight. Like you say, when we said about a fight of two halves, Usyk the first part, then Fury took over, then Usyk come back, Fury nicked the last. It was two backwards and forwards, 12 rounds of a brilliant, brilliant fight. I mean, I've watched it 3 times now, and I'm sure lots of fans are going to keep watching it again. This is what us boxing fans do. And like we knew possibly there was going to be the rematch was there if, either fighter wanted it. But, there's no doubt about it now. It sells a rematch very, very well. It's going to be huge. And they both, like you say, they both deserve a massive amount of praise for it. Tyson Fury was very gracious in defeat. Well, apart from his little comment at the end of the fight, we can forgive that for being all emotional after the fight and that. But he's been gracious in defeat since. We've seen no excuses from anything, and that's the way you want it to be. He lost to the better man on the night. He can come again. It's still going to be a very close fight in the second one, but let's see what happens. Let's see who adjusts and who does what.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to segue into the rematch and if that would be to happen next and whatnot, but you've kind of covered everything there. So yeah, I agree. I think the rematch does happen. If both guys are champion for their adjustments or being able to adjust in the ring when things aren't going their way. So I think it'll be equally as intriguing to see if they can make the adjustments out of the ring in camp ahead of the potential rematch, which looks like it would be penciled in for October. So yeah, we will go more in depth with that if we do, as expected, get an official announcement. Just a word on the undercard, Darren, before we move on. As we mentioned, it was another cracking undercard, knockouts, thrills, spills, upsets. Just quickly, I mentioned on Jai Opetaya's win over Marius Bradis. Shout out to Marius Bradis as well, because at one point during fight week, certainly for myself, we almost looked at him in a disrespectful manner, that he was over the hill, that he was gone, it was a final payday, and that it was cannon fodder for the next generation. It was the young lion coming to take the spot of the older lion. And Bradis put up a hell of a fight. It wasn't the most intriguing fight early on, but late in the fight, Marius Bradis shown that warrior spirit. He went out on his shield to give it a right go. Jai Opetaya winning on points, retaining the Ring Magazine title and regaining the IBF title that he didn't lose in the ring. And we'll look to now go into unification bouts with other champions at cruiserweight, and maybe even move up to heavyweight in the not too distant future. But yeah, there was a fight that we thought would end inside the distance. It didn't, and in the end proved to be another war of attrition, just like the first fight.
Yeah, always one of them to start when the fight got announced, and I thought, Brady's inactivity. Opetaya will make a big statement here and probably stop him within 6 rounds. But I'll be honest, as the fight grew closer, I kept looking at Brady. So I thought, okay, inactivity probably will play key, but he's a guy that's never been stopped, and he's been in with the best of them, the Usyks. But exactly as you say, he definitely grew into the fight. Opetaya was the fair winner, but Brady's definitely grew into the fight, and it's as though the inactivity was there to start with, but as the fight went on, he started looking a lot better. But for me, a little bit, Opetaya is a superb fighter. I think he's going to go a long way. But I think what happens with certain fighters like the Opetayas, they've been knocking out the likes of, no disrespect, but the Ellis Sorrows and Jordan Thompsons that are like right down here compared to Opetaya. And then he steps in with Bradis again, and he can't really put a dent in him. Great win, but he couldn't put a dent in him. So sometimes you get as a boxing fan, you get a little bit ahead of your station. Look at them wins of the KOs in 2 and 3 rounds and that 1 round, and think, oh, he's going to do this to the next guy who's a superb world level operator, but he was inactive. But we just need to like get a bit level headed sometimes and not go too far. He's going to knock him out, and it don't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. And just a word for Ante Kakache as well, realising a lifelong dream of becoming world champion. I know he had the IBO title beforehand, but it's not as held in high regard as the 4 main sanctioning bodies. And yeah, stunning win, stopping the previously undefeated Joe Cordina in 8 rounds. A bit of controversy around that punch on the break and whatnot, and did that discombobulate Cordina? Did it knock him off his game plan? But for me, Darren, if we're talking straight down the barrel, which we always try and do, Cordina didn't look right to me either way before or after that left hook. So I'm not sure how much you can pin on that. And the fact that he continued the fight, if he went on to win the fight or to stop Kakache, we wouldn't be talking about that third round. So yeah, let's not take anything away from Anthony Kakache and winning that world title, and what a great win for him.
Yeah, brilliant win. I actually thought the fight could have been stopped earlier than when it actually was. I agree with you about Cordina. He didn't look right. He looked weight drained. Possibly, he'd probably step up now. But I thought Anthony Kakache looked super fit at the right weight for him. Super fit, relentless. Didn't let Cordina off the hook. Looked calm and composed with his pressure as well. I've been to watch Kakache live a few times, and I've always thought he's decent. He's very active in his fights. He's tough. He's durable. But I didn't see him doing that, in all honesty. I thought Cordina would win, probably on points, but hats off to Kakache. He totally deserved the win, and he goes on to bigger and better things. And as he said at the end, he wants to fight in Saudi again. He'll go on and have another big payday, and he was the rightfully deserved winner.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the with Matchroom, they almost have both sides of the street covered there, because they've got there's no rematch clause for Cordina, but they've got Sugar Nunes, who's lined up as the mandatory challenger for Kakache. So talk about out the frying pan into the fryer, and that'll be one hell of a baptism of fire for Kakache. But given that he's won the title in the fashion that he did, he'll fear no man. Just a word on Carl Frampton as well. I'm not sure if you've seen it, Darren. He was working the show for TNT, and of course he's a really, really good friend of Anthony Kakache. You see his little celebrations and the way he was watching the fight, and just a really special moment.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, obviously they're good friends and that, and like you say, like when you see them moments, when you see moments like that in boxing, you actually realise how special and how bonds people get in the sport. And hats off to Carl Frampton. I think he actually tipped Kakache. I know they're good friends, but I think he actually tipped Kakache to win the fight. Whereas, including me, a lot of people didn't. And it's lovely, really nice to see. And Kakache, he comes across really as a really good guy in the sport, and he deserves all the praise he can get. And I hope he goes on, like I say, he will go on to bigger and better paydays again.
Yeah, and of course you can see on social media as well, Darren, the homecoming for Kakache, which was really special. And again, it epitomises everything that's right with the sport of boxing. And the final fight that I want to touch on from the card out in Saudi is, everyone generally considers Joe Parker as your second favourite heavyweight boxer. Whether you're Team Fury, Team Wilder, Team AJ, Joe Parker's the next in line, given the way he's turned his career around. He's linked up with Andy Lee, and he's rattling off wins after wins. And the last two being over Wilder and Zhang have been fantastic. But creeping into that conversation is a certain Ajit Kabayel, a guy that is a 2 or 3-time European champion, never really lost a belt in the ring. He's undefeated, beat the giant Makhmudov, and now took on another undefeated, dangerous heavyweight in Frank Sanchez. And for the second fight running, he made it look almost easy against another top 10 contender, and for me, he seems very charming out of the ring. I've not had the opportunity to speak to him, but yeah, what a win for Ajit Kabayel as he moves into bigger and bigger fights and bigger opportunities.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've always quite rated Kabayel from when I first seen him beat Derek Chisora on that Monte Carlo card all them years ago. I think it was 2017 or something like that. And I liked what I saw, but I just feel like with Ajit Kabayel, he's always had them skills. He's just never had the break. He's needed, like, the Saudi money now, they've got him on the cards. He's got his break now, and he's absolutely grabbed it with 2 hands and took advantage of it. I actually fancied him to beat Makhmudov when he did, but I didn't think he'd do it in such destructive fashion. I thought it'd be points. I just thought he was too clever a boxer for Makhmudov. And then against Frank Sanchez, I actually thought he'd win on points again, and I didn't see him doing the destructive way that he ended the fight. But Frank Sanchez has always been a bit lazy for me in the ring, and that's why I fancied Kabayel to win the fight. But the way Kabayel took it to him and, forced the pace, it's as though he weren't even fearing anything coming back at times. He was just willing to go forward, put it on him. It's as though sometimes with Kabayel, the way he's fighting in Saudi, it's as though it's a matter of life or death for him, the way he's going for it. I've watched him in his fights before against the likes of Rudenko and people like that. Kevin Johnson. He's coasted through a fight to get the win, and sort of like thought, I'll do enough what I have to do to get into this position he's in. Now he's in this position, he's on the grand stage, he's absolutely letting his hands go.
It's almost like, Darren, I don't want to cut you off, mate, but
that's right.
It's almost like, boxers have this plan laid out for how they're going to get to a world title. For him, he's just almost like short term of, no, I'm going to get this next payday. Turkey's sat ringside. They're going to keep feeding me opportunities as long as I keep winning. It's almost like he's got short term goals that are going to ultimately turn into long term goals, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, exactly that. He's took full advantage of the opportunity he's been granted here. And like I said, like in fights before, he's just coasted through, got the W, thinking, what's going to come next. It's as though he's just waited for the big stage to perform on. If you look at his record before, he's got some KOs on there, but they're not really like, when you look at the last two fights, the stoppages he's got, they're nothing like what he's done in these last two fights. And it's just a fighter that's hungry to get to the top, and the paydays he's getting. And for me, from what I've seen of heavyweights in the last few years, he's definitely up there. And a fight I'd love to see is him and Josie Parker. It probably won't happen, but Cowboy Ali is very interesting to see where he goes next.
Yeah, absolutely. Darren, listen, it's been very fascinating to have you on the podcast. We've reached the end of our review of Tyson Fury versus Oleksandr Usyk. We crowned the new undisputed heavyweight world champion. Guys, as always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave us a review on whatever platform you listen to this podcast. I'll catch you on next week's episode. And a big thank you to Darren for joining us on the podcast. Make sure you check him out on Twitter. He'll be tagged in all our media posts. Cheers, Darren.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.